Welcome to Jefferson Highlights Community Television. I'm Lori Zook. My guest today is Seth Stevens from the Jefferson Township Public Library. Welcome, Seth.
Hi, Lori.
Nice to meet you.
Glad to be here.
Thank you. Can you tell me a little bit about the history of the library and how it came to exist?
The history of the library is directly related to the New Deal, Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal. One of the projects in the New Deal was called the Work Projects Administration, the WPA. And one of the programs within the WPA was to try and bring library services to rural areas. A woman in the township named Violet Riker received funds and support from the WPA to bring library services to Jefferson Township. She established small collections of books that had various homes from 1930 on upwards to about 1960. It was at various times the library collection was located in people's homes, in churches. At different times it was located in schools. It's very interesting reading about it because at various points the collection had to be moved because of fires, because of floodings. At one point the collection ended up on the front porch of Violet Riker's house. And if you wanted to borrow library books, you went to Violet's house and borrowed a book off of her porch. This is what the library's newsletter is called, Violet's Porch, because we think that was a great icon and memory to have of the library. In 1960, Violet and the volunteers that she was working with formed an association called the Jefferson Township Public Library Association. And the chief function of the Library Association was to provide library services to the township. The Library Association, at the time, for $1, purchased a house that had been an abandoned house. It's the building right now that serves as the Jefferson Township Historical Society. For $1, they bought the house. They refurbished the house to a certain extent. There's a great story that goes with that. When they were cleaning out the house, they found a chamber pot. And Violet didn't know what to do with it, so one of the volunteers took it. And the next day she went to the person's house and they were using it as a flower vase. But that historical society building served as the library from 1960 to 1980. I didn't learn until recently that while the building had electricity, it didn't have any indoor plumbing. It had heat, but if you needed to use the restroom, you had to go across the street to the church. I marvel at that because I can remember 1980. I was just out of high school. In 1980, the township built the current library. It's an 8,000 square foot structure right across from the municipal building and municipal complex. And at that point, Violet was getting elderly and she retired, and another director was brought in to take the library, and it's grown from there.
Can you tell me how long you've been with the library and what your background is?
I've been with the library since April of 1996. I'm just beginning my 10th year with the library. Prior to that, I worked for 10 years in various positions at the Montclair Public Library. I started my career out there as a library assistant, which is an entry-level position for someone who has no library background. And from there, I went through the library school program at Rutgers University. When I completed that, I became the head cataloger. In librarian speak, the head cataloger is the person who organizes the books into a collection. Just imagine having 40,000 books and trying to figure out how to organize them so people can get to them and use them. That's what the head cataloger did. After I was head cataloger for about 3 years, the Montclair Library had a branch in Upper Montclair, and they needed someone to run the branch. And I had a desire to get into a leadership position. So I went out and I spent another 3 years running the branch in Upper Montclair, and then in 1996 I came here to Jefferson.
Wow, that's fantastic. It sounds like a lot of research goes into what you have to do in order to run a library.
Yeah, it's a challenge. I think for anyone who's gone into librarianship in the last 20 years, it's been greatly complicated by the increasing pace of technology. When I started in the Montclair Public Library in 1986. I had never worked in a library before, and I fully expected I would be working with a card catalog and doing research. And on the first day of my job, they sat me in front of a computer and started to teach me how to use a computer, because they found that the easiest way to maintain such a large collection of books was to use a computer. So it was a real change for me in the way of thinking, because my previous experience up to that point had been as a researcher and a student, and I always used a card catalog. I was probably the last class at my college that wasn't required to have to take computer courses or to have a computer in their dorm room. I was still typing all of my papers on a typewriter. So I was with a little bit of ambivalence that I started my career working at a computer, but I really quickly found out that it was the best way and most efficient way to perform that function in the library. And one of the challenges for anyone in librarianship has been able to keep up with the remarkable amount of technological change that's been occurring in the information fields.
Is there a need now for librarians?
The people who study this expect that there will be. Most of the people who are in librarianship right now will be retiring within the next 10 to 20 years. Most of the people who go into librarianship, it's either most of the time it's a second career choice for them. Most of the people who are librarians don't intentionally start out being a librarian. I think that's why the librarian profession it does so well, is that you have people who have a very background working in libraries. They not only bring their library experience, but their life experience and experience from other professions when they're working.
What type of training is required?
Generally, there are two classes of employees in most libraries. You have what are called library assistants, who are considered paraprofessionals, and those are people who work in libraries. They may have a high school education, they may have a college education, an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree, and they're considered library assistants. Library professionals are people who have gone through a master's degree program at an accredited library science program at a university. The closest ones here are at Rutgers University. There are, I believe, also a program at some of the different schools in New York City as well as in Philadelphia.
What do you enjoy most yourself about working in the library?
I enjoy, for me, libraries have always been about books. If you talk to a lot of people in the profession, you go to the American Library Association, they begin to talk about information science and the challenges of computers and providing people with the information that they need. And I think I'm a bit of an iconoclast in my profession, because for me it's always been about connecting people with books and sharing with people the value that books can bring to their life and to a community. I'm not that much of an iconoclast. One of the things that over the last 10 years that I've become more aware of is the importance of providing people with the information that they need in their life. At no other time in the history of the world has there been so much information out there available for people when they're making decisions. And in many ways, the term information anxiety, information overload is a very real, concrete concept for many people. One of the things that librarians are able to do is help people filter through that information and make the decisions that they need, not just life decisions like income tax forms, but being able to choose a good movie to look at, this is me coming back to the books, helping people find a good book to read. Even though there's the internet and all sorts of technology that is out there, and some people have said there won't be a need for books, the publishing industry is publishing more books than it has in any other time in its history. And I think one of the great things that a librarian can do is introduce people to the books that are being published out there and help them get the information they need to make all sorts of decisions in their lives.
What does the library offer other than books? What other help can you get at a library that maybe isn't offered on the internet?
The library sees itself as being a cultural hub for the community. This time of year, one of the things that we do that's been a very popular service and has continually grown over the years is that we work in partnership with the AARP. AARP, once a week from the beginning of February up through April 15th, has volunteers come to the library. These are trained IRS volunteers, and they assist people with helping fill out their federal income tax and their state income tax forms. It's a service that's directly focused on senior citizens and middle and low income people. But the volunteers that we work with do a great job. They'll help you prepare your income tax. With the advent of electronic filing, they'll even help you file it electronically. That's a service that the library and AARP provide for free. The library has a notary public on staff. What's great about that is that when you usually can't find a notary public after 5 o'clock anywhere else in town, the library has a notary public on staff who's there on Wednesday evenings till 9 o'clock and also on some Saturdays and Sundays. So that's great when you need a notary public. The library, one of the things that we've been working on doing is trying to move the library away from the notion that it is a place and think of it as a service. We realize that especially in a geographically diverse township like Jefferson Township, that it's very impossible to serve. It's not impossible, but one of the things that hinders library services is the fact that not everyone can easily get to the library. When I worked in Montclair, which is an urban area, to get to the library you could just walk down the street or get to the bus. In Jefferson Township, those aren't viable alternatives for most people. We also know that in Jefferson Township there are a lot of people who work. You have two-income families. So the challenge for the library is how do you overcome those hindrances? And one of the ways we've been trying to do that is make library services available from home. Most of the databases, which are just electronic collections of information, are available from home at a person's computer. You can sit down and search the library's catalog from your home computer. We provide another database called Reference USA, which is essentially just a big collection and listing of different sized businesses throughout New Jersey as well as throughout the United States. I used it once. A person had called up and they said they wanted to order a sub from this great place that they had a sub in Chicago, and they wanted to have it sent to someone, and they needed to know the name and address of this sub shop in Chicago. So we were able, using Reference USA, to give them and provide that with that information. A lot of times when people are looking for jobs, whether they're unemployed or perhaps are looking for a better job or a different job, they want to know what kinds of businesses they can send their resumes to. Reference USA enables you to get that information and send out references to different companies. We have two other services that we provide. One is called EBSCO Host, the other one is called UMI. All these are essentially periodical databases. Probably when you and I grew up using a library, we went to a big green volume called The Reader's Guide to Periodical Literature, which was essentially an index of magazine articles. Well, now all of those things are available online, and not only do you get the citation and the index, but you get the article attached to it. So if you're a student or you're a parent and you're at home and you're trying to help your son or your daughter or yourself do a research project, you can go online and you can use those indexes. You can retrieve the articles and print them out at home. Two services that the library recently added on was one called the Automobile Reference Center, Automobile Repair Reference Center, where you can go on, you can do this from home, you can go onto the library's website and follow the link for the Automobile Reference Center, and you can search and go through collections of automobile repair manuals for all different makes and models of cars from the current day onwards back to 1970. If you're an antique car collector, they've also included some additional manuals for cars that were built in the 60s as well as the 50s. And you can do that from home. What's great about that is, one, is that it provides that service to people at their home. You don't have to use it within the hours that the library is open. You can do it at 2 o'clock in the morning. You can do it at 7 o'clock on a Sunday night. You can do it at 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon when your car is out in the garage in parts and you're trying to figure out what to do with it, which is what I've done. That's how I got introduced to that. So we're always adding different and new services to the library in mind to trying to provide services that are going to be convenient, easy for people to use, but always come back to that theme of introducing and connecting people with books and information that can improve the quality of their lives.
That's terrific. You offer a lot of services that I wasn't aware of, and I'm sure people watching were not aware of either. So we'll be back in just a moment on Jefferson Highlights Community Television. Welcome back. I'm speaking with Seth Stevens from the Jefferson Township Public Library. And Seth, can you tell me what services you would like to see the library offer that they don't currently offer now?
One of the challenges in thinking about library services for the future is, how do you continue to provide and grow library services to the community when you know that people don't have, their amount of leisure time that they have to use the library is shrinking and becoming less and less every day. And how do we do it and still keep it to be cost effective? One of the things that we're looking at and trying to do that is to try and figure out ways to provide more ways that people can use books and get to the collections. The township has, I believe, 9 to 10 different child care centers in it. One of the things that has been proven almost beyond the shadow of a doubt are the benefits of making sure children are in contact and have access to a collection of books at a young age. Scientists, people who have studied reading, have found that a child's reading ability is greatly helped when, as a young child, they have access to books. So what we're trying to do is figure out, well, we know we have a lot of children who are spending 2, 3, 4, maybe a whole day in daycare at a young age. How can we get them in touch with books? Because we believe that becoming a library user and becoming a habitual library user, it's a lifetime process. It starts when a child is very young. So we're looking at the idea of developing deposit collections, where we would take out a collection of books and deposit it and leave it at a neighborhood daycare center. And each month the library would come up and take the collection that's there and drop off and deliver a new collection. We would really, we think that this would go a long ways to helping children develop their reading skills, helping them become habitual library users. The other thing about that too is that we find that when children read, parents read. It's an inverse relationship. We know that when parents read, children read, but what a lot of people don't realize as well is that when children come into the library and looking for books, mom and dad also get the opportunity to look and read books. A lot of people think that when you become a parent and when you become an adult, you give up the opportunity to read, that there's no time for it. When you make time to make sure your children have books, you have time to make sure you have books as well. So the idea of developing deposit collections is to start with providing multiple opportunities for young children to be able to come in contact with books. And then as the service grows, we see it perhaps expanding on to nursing homes. Jefferson right now is developing senior citizen housing. And when those are complete, we are pretty certain that there'll be a great opportunity there to provide collections of books to the residents of those homes. Eventually, I hope the service would get to the point where we could offer pickup and delivery of books at the doorstep. We would probably start out doing it with senior citizens, where a senior citizen could call up and say, I like these types of books. And we would show up on Wednesday morning, or one morning during the week, and provide you with those books. And then come back 2 weeks later, pick up the ones we delivered, and provide more. I really think that where we're headed is trying to make it easier for people to get in touch with books and information. We're doing that with information where people who have computers can go to their home, or if you're a student, you can sit down at a computer in school and get in touch with the resources of the library. I'd like to take it to the next step and have remote delivery of books, so that if people can't get to the library for one reason or not, or if they just don't feel they need to go to the library, well, the library will come to you. To make it, I've always felt that library services should be as simple, very simple and easy to use. The less hurdles you provide to people using the library, the easier you make it, the more likely people are going to be to use that service.
Now, you're making me think of something. If I recall correctly, don't you have public book drops at the library at Pathmark and maybe other places you can talk about?
At one point in the library's history, there were multiple book drops throughout the town. But for a number of reasons, there are difficulties developed emptying those book drops, and it was ceased. And about 7 years ago, a number of people had come to us and said, I like to use the library, but it's really difficult for me to get the books returned on time. So we said, well, what if we put a book drop where it was easier so people could return their books and not have to worry about that. We put a book drop at the Pathmark on Route 15 South. And each day, enough books are deposited in that book drop that we have someone on our staff who their sole responsibility is going over to the Pathmark, emptying that book drop, and bringing it back to the library. Again, it's that theme of making the library as easy as possible for people to use. We've sat down, and one of the things we did this year was, originally our loan period on DVDs and videotapes were 4 days. And we found that a lot of people didn't want to have to pick up a video on Friday and then return it again on Monday or Tuesday afternoon. It was difficult because not only did they have to worry about getting it back on time, but they knew if they didn't get it back on time, there might be fines. So our solution was make it as easy as possible for people to get it back there. So we put the book drop at Pathmark. There are 2 book drops at the library, one right in front of the library and then one around the far corner. One of the things that I'm hoping we'll be able to do this year is to put more book drops throughout the town. Because if you make services as easy as possible for people to use, they'll use them.
That was an excellent idea. Can you tell me about some of how you do fundraising, and do you accept donations, and if so, what you need?
The library is a public institution. It's a tax-based institution. When the library started out, it was an association, which means that it operated chiefly on donations. And throughout the history of the library, there have been various donors, but the biggest donor to the library when it was an association was the town, the township, the town council. Each year the library, at the beginning of the year, would go to the town council and make a case for itself and request a donation from the township. And that worked very well. But when I became director, and the more experience I had with it, I found that it was very difficult for us to sustain the growth of library services, because what would happen is that you would have ebbs and tides in the library donation. Well, one year it might be really great, and other years it would be lower. So what would happen is, for example, this year you might be able to buy a book drop and set it up at Pathmark. The next year you might have to remove it because you didn't have the funds to have someone come and pick it up. In 2000, the library changed its structure and we became a tax-based institution. What that means is, instead of our funding being all given voluntarily, the funding would be mandatory. Under state law, as a public library, 1/3 of every 10th, it's called 1/3 of a mil, and it's a little bit complicated.
Okay.
The 1/3 of a mil is based upon the total assessed value of property in Jefferson Township.
Okay.
For every dollar of assessed property value, 1/3 of a 1/10 of a cent goes to the library funding. So if you took $1, you broke it up into 100 cents, and then you took 1 cent and you divided it into 10 pieces, and you took 1/10 and divided it into thirds. That third is how much would go to the library. It's worked very well for the library because Jefferson's property values and the total assessed value of property in Jefferson has steadily increased. So through that, the library services has continued to grow, and we were able to build a sustained level of services. When we were an association, we counted a lot on donations. As a public institution right now, I have to say that it's a little bit awkward with donations, because I feel like everybody in the community makes a donation to the library through their property taxes. A lot of people don't know that the library is a tax-based institution. So yeah, we take donations. Every time you pay your taxes, you're making, in a sense, a donation to the library. People oftentimes ask if the library wants donations of used books. What we do is we take the books and we look through them and see which ones that we can add to the collection, and those that we add to the collection we'll keep, and the other ones we send to recycling. I know that sounds really harsh, and a lot of people have trouble with the notion of sending books to recycling. The library has a capacity of about 40,000 books. Right now we have about 55,000. And although 55,000 books sounds like a lot, you can collect 55,000 books very easily. So one of the things that people are amazed to find out about the library is that there's a constant intake and outtake of library books. To maintain the collection and to keep it growing, to make sure it's serving the changing needs of the communities, we're always taking books out of the collection and adding books into the collection. Unfortunately, when people come to us with donations, if it's a book that you no longer need, it's probably a book that your neighbor also doesn't need any longer. So while we try to be generous, and we're glad that people think of the library, oftentimes when people bring us books, we'll take one or two, but most of the time they need to go to recycling because they're books that that people just aren't asking for in the collection. I love books. The idea of discarding them and sending them to recycling is a painful one for me, but I also know that the library is a fixed source, and we can't have a building full of books that no one's using. That's just not a useful resource of what we're doing. We're a library, not an archive. And for us to be viable, to provide sustainable, meaningful services to the township, we have to be really careful when it comes to seeking donations of books. Through the years, people have given us donations of cash Usually, if a loved one dies, they might want to put a book in the collection in memory of that person, and we do that quite often, and it's a very nice gesture to do. Various people at different times have come and offered to donate pieces of furniture to the library collection when we've needed them. When I came to the library, our children's area didn't have a lot of furniture that was really appropriate to children. It was, you know, we had two chairs perhaps that children could sit in, and through donations of cash, donations of furniture, we have a children's area now that's appropriate for children. Children don't have to sit in adult chairs when they color. There are rocking chairs in there so that mom and dad can sit with their children while they're coloring. Mom and dad don't have to sit there and hover over their children while they're coloring. Mom and dad can read a book and watch their children color or pick out books. So we take donations, but we have to be very careful about how we take them and what's donated to the library.
I understand. Thanks for answering my questions. And we'll be back in just a moment on Jefferson Highlights Community Television. Welcome back. I'm with Seth Stevens from the Jefferson Township Public Library. And Seth, can you tell me, who are the Friends of the Library?
Let me just say that the Friends are a great group of people that I enjoy working with. They're volunteers from the community. As a fundraiser, they encourage people to donate $10 each year as a membership donation to the library. The Friends have two functions. They help raise funds for the library for programs traditionally that the library can't support by itself, and they're also advocates for library services in the community. When we were an association, the fundraising role of the Friends was much more important because we didn't have a sustained level of funding. When we were an association, fundraising for the Friends helped us refurbish our children's area. They helped us provide new computers. They helped us provide programs to the community. They still do many things of that type. Each year, an annual fall ritual for us is to prevent a Friends of the Library murder mystery, and the proceeds from that go back into the library to help improve it in some ways. This last fall, the proceeds of our murder mystery went to a library building fund, which someday, long in the future, we hope that we'll be able to expand the library and pay for it on our own. For me, what I enjoy about the Friends is that they're advocates for libraries in the community. My vision of a friend is someone who would walk over to their neighbor and say, you know what, this is what look what we can do at the library, and who just by their being there, being identified as a friend of the library, show people all the great things you can do at a library. The Friends also serve as a focus group for the library. Many of the services that we develop, many of the policies that the trustees and I adopt are often filtered through our Friends group first, because we know that they're just volunteers from the community. They give us a good glimpse into how the community is changing, how library services are perceived in the community. They're a valuable part of us helping the library understand how it's connecting with the community.
I understand. Can you tell me, I know that there's a calendar of events that you have, I see sometimes in the paper with different things going on at the library. Is there a fee to attend, and where can people find the information on that?
No, there is never a fee to attend a library program. When people talk about a free, many times you'll see public libraries with the word free in front of them. And if you actually looked at the incorporation papers for the library, you would see it as the Board of Trustees of the Free Public Library of Jefferson Township. That free means not that it's a free service like you find in a box of cereal, but that it's free, it's open to everyone. Any service that the library provides is a free service in that it's open to anyone without any cost. It's not free in terms of a cost, because everyone contributes to library services through the payment of their property taxes. But in return, there's never a charge to use the library. You can come in and attend any program that the library provides, and it's free. You can come in and use the catalog, you can request books, and it's free. And I think that's one of the really great things for a library, about the library. Most people, according to their property taxes, pay between $40 and $60 a year for library services. Basically, it's about the cost of dinner and a movie for a family. That provides you with 365 days of library service at no cost. So I like the idea that our services don't cost anything. We don't charge at the door. We provide a number of different programs that are cultural programs, because, again, we believe that that's one of the ways to connect people to books. When you come in, one of the things that we do in the summer is that we have a Shakespeare troupe come in and do a Shakespeare play. Well, our hope is that if you come in and you see Shakespeare at the library, you're going to pick up a Shakespeare book. We recently had a harp player there for Valentine's Day. Our hope is that if you come in and enjoy a Valentine's Day program, that you'll pick up a book at the library. It's all about trying to provide cultural services in the forms of books and information that have meaning to the community and enriches their life. All the events that the library has, we make a big effort to publicize. You can find them either in the local newspaper, or you can go to the library's website, Jefferson Township, jeffersonlibrary.net. You just follow the links for our schedule of events and you can see what's happening. The library also publishes a bi-monthly newsletter. This year we hope that we'll begin to be able to mail it to people's homes, and that lists all of the events that we have planned at the library.
And I noticed on your website that you also offer an online book club as well, so that's another benefit for people if they're interested in doing that. Mm-hmm. Can you briefly tell me about what special children's services that you offer?
We offer story hours on a weekly basis. On any given week at the library, you will find that we offer between 15 and 20 children's story hours, all the way up. Well, I have to say, there used to be from 2.5 on up to kindergarten, but we do a program that we started 2 years ago called Lap Sit, where moms can bring in babies to the library. And even though they're not walking yet, they may be crawling, we read to them. We help moms read to them. It gives an opportunity for moms to have a chance to talk with each other, which we found is a really a valuable experience for a town like Jefferson Township, where you have a new mom. A lot of times new moms need a chance to get out and be with other moms and be around other babies. So from 2.5 on up, actually from infant on up to about 6, we provide story hour where children can come in, they can be introduced to books, they have a librarian read to them. We do drop-in crafts throughout the week where mom or dad or the children themselves can come in and pick up a craft and do it. We do an American Girls story hour where about every month we do a play based upon stories that have been read from the American Girls series. In the summer, most of our summer activities are devoted towards summer reading. This summer we're looking at really expanding our summer reading program and doing it outside under a big tent. So there are lots of services that we provide for children, and some really interesting ones coming up.
And I know that people can trace their family history at the library. Right. I know that you offer an online reservation service there. If you can just briefly tell me, you're conducting an online survey.
That's right.
Can you tell me how that works?
One of the things that I think is directly related to developing good services for our quality services that are valued services library services to the township are giving people opportunities to provide input on the quality of services that we provide. The survey is an annual survey that we began last year, and what it does is provide people the opportunity to tell us what they think of library services and how they're providing. As an incentive, anyone who takes the online survey, you can take it through the library's website, jeffersonlibrary.net. You'll be entered into for a free drawing for a dinner at the Milton Inn, or an opportunity to win one of 7 pairs of free movie tickets. We're really anxious to find out what the community thinks about the services that we're providing. It's also important to us because we know that we can't be all things to all people. And by getting input from the public, finding out which programs are working, what areas we need to improve in, what areas we're doing a great job in, we're able to provide a more effective and efficient allocation of the resources that we get to provide library services. So it's a very important part of library services, and for me as library director, it's becoming a key tool in the management of the library.
Great. Well, hopefully our viewers will go to jeffersonlibrary.net and log on and do the online survey. And we'll be back in just a moment on Jefferson Highlights Community Television. Welcome back to Jefferson Highlights Community Television. I'm here with Seth Stevens. He's the director of the Jefferson Township Public Library. And Seth, I understand you're going to review some books for us today.
I brought along three of the favorite books that I've read in the past few weeks. The first book that I wanted to talk about is a book that I've really been enjoying. It's called A Thread of Grace by Mary Doria Russell. I think it's a remarkable book because the author with this book has switched genres. Her previous 2 books were very well-known books, but they were science fiction books. This is a book that's historical fiction. It follows a group of people. It takes place during World War II, and the group of people in the book are Jewish refugees who are hiding in southern France. And at the time of the book opens, Italy has just surrendered, and this group of people believes that they can take refuge in Italy because now Italy will be a safe place because it's no longer involved in the war, or so they think. So it follows them crossing the Alps and entering into Italy. What's really amazing about this is the way the Italians who encounter these groups of Jews or Hebrews as they're coming across the Alps of Italy. They're very welcoming to them. They want to protect them and hide them. So these group of people who are crossing the Alps are protected and find solace with people who, up until probably a few weeks before the story begins, they considered their enemies. It's a great book. It looks at the Holocaust in Italy from a very different perspective. The next book that I want to recommend is called At Risk by Stella Remington. It's a really, I find, I'm not a person who generally reads espionage fiction, but if you like espionage fiction, if you like thrillers, this is a very good book. I think it's remarkable because the author is a former head of MI-15, which is the American equivalent of the CIA. What's interesting for me about it is how un-Hollywood the book is. It follows a female intelligence officer who's trying to track an invisible. And invisible in this book is someone who is entering the country. He's considered a threat, but they're particularly hard to track because they are able to blend into the culture of the country that they're offering. This book follows the the female character, the female intelligence officer, trying to track this invisible. What I enjoyed about the book is at the end, it delves into the motivations of the invisible, and you find out that what you assume throughout most of the book are political motivations for the invisible being there are in fact some very personal motivations. And I think for me it made me really think a lot about how much when we think about terrorism, how much of it is a political motivation and how much of it might just be people acting out of personal motives that often get disguised or thought of as being political motives. It's an excellent book. It looks big and it's thick, but you can finish it in a weekend. The final book that I'd like to recommend is another book that I enjoyed. It's another female author. What I like about the book is that often you find, when you talk about books, you find a number of people who would say, you know, women can write about women, and men can write about men, but you often can't find women writing about men or men writing about women. And this is a great case of a woman writing about male characters and the growth of male characters. And I think for me that's what's significant about this book. The story opens with a gentleman. He's a father. He has 2 small children. It takes place in the Depression, and the family is living in the woods in Vermont. Their mother, the mother of the family, the lost mother of the title, has just abandoned the family. And the plot of the book explores, one, how this family, the father and 2 children, survive, and especially how the son in the story and the father come to understand their mother's motivations for abandoning them and leaving. What is exciting for me about the books, one of the things that I enjoyed about the book was the different characters, and especially that the author was able to explore the feelings of a male character so well. I don't think I've read a book recently that explored and I think caught male characteristics and male understanding and behavior so well before. And again, I think it's remarkable to find that this is a female writer who has such a good understanding and who can portray a male character so well.
Well, they sound like 3 very interesting books. So thank you for reviewing them.
You're welcome.
And we'll be back in just a moment on Jefferson Highlights Community TV. Welcome back to Jefferson Highlights Community Television. My guest today has been Seth Stevens, the director of the Jefferson Township Public Library. And Seth, I want to thank you so much. You've answered a lot of questions of things that I didn't know existed at the library, and I think what you do is really wonderful. Can you tell the viewers watching, where is the library located?
The library is located at 1031 Weldon Road. We're right across from the municipal building. If you see our mailing address, it says Oak Ridge. And if you look at the municipal building's mailing address, it's Lake Opatcon. Even though one says Oak Ridge, one says Lake Opatcon, they're right next to each other. So we're right across from the municipal building.
Excellent. And what hours is the library open?
We're there Monday through Thursday from 10 to 9. We're there Friday from 10 to 5, Saturday from 9 to 3, and Sunday from 1 to 5.
And can you tell me what your website address and your phone number is in case people would like to reach you?
Our website is jeffersonlibrary.net. Our phone number is 973-208-6115.
Terrific. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome. And I'm Lori Zook for Jefferson Highlights Community Television. Thanks for joining us. Lori Zook from Jefferson Highlights Community Television.
And I'm Seth Stevens of the Jefferson Township Public Library.
For more information on the public library, you can contact
our website at jeffersonlibrary.net or our phone number, which is 973-208-6115. Or you can visit the library at 1031 Weldon Road, right across from the municipal building. Our hours are Monday through Thursday from 10 in the morning to 9 in the evening, Fridays from 10 in the morning to 5 in the evening, Saturdays from 9 to 3, and Sundays from 1 to 5.